Welcome back, Addicts. I'm Michael,
And I'm Josh.
and today we're doing an anime review.
Yeah. One of your favorites.
One of my favorites, yes, Overlord Season 1. So this series, it also is a light novel series that I haven't read the material over Season 1. I have read Season 2 and Season three's material in light novel form. But I'll just go over the plot in general. It's one of those isekai plots. Basically, there's a transportation to another world. This one's based heavily on a game, an MMO. It's about a guy who basically he's like a salary worker and he's like 25 and he just does stuff. Well, he's the only one left who still plays this game in the guild, and the game's shutting down. It's basically like an MMO, and the game's shutting down entirely. So he's playing it basically until it shuts down. And when it shuts down, he gets trapped in the game. He's now basically a skeleton overlord, so like a skeleton magician.
He's like a lich.
Yeah, basically like the Lich King in World of Warcraft. That's basically him. But yeah, so now he also has all these NPCs that they created that are super powerful, but also have like personalities of their own now.
Yeah.
But they see him as like a god, and everything he says is the law, and they won't disobey him. So it's kind of like him trying to get used to that role since he's just a normal guy to act like a king, and then trying to like decide what he wants to do, trying to see if any of his friends are in this world, and trying to just discover the world in general and survive and protect the people he cares about.
And far as their characters, oh my gosh, there are so many characters. We won't go over all of them because it would just simply take too long. But there are three main factions throughout the first season. You have the House of Nazarick, which is the main guy, Ainzurulgaon. He is leader of this. This is like his guild, basically.
It's a dungeon. It's almost like a dungeon
it's
fortress.
and there's like different levels. So they're like, what level? Like 8th level or something like
8th
that?
or 9th or 10th, yeah.
Yes. And they're like on a plane where there's like monsters, but they teleport. But that's not important. Anyway, he has a big group of like, I guess you could say like lieutenants and like strategic advisors, and then he also has like his housemaids, which even his housemaids are like super powerful. So they're basically OP guild. Because like all of them are level 100, and that's like the highest level you can be.
Yeah, they're all pretty much max level. I think the maids are a little bit lower than that. I think they're like mid-tier.
Yeah.
But this world is like super behind, I guess. There's not that many people that are high level. So they're kind of OP, and you get to see that when they introduce the next faction, Carne Village.
Yeah, which Carne Village is... There's nothing really special about it at first. It just seems like a really small village that's in some really bad circumstances where the House of Nazarick actually is where they entered the point of this world. That's where they enter, is at Carne Village, and you get to see the first interaction with them for, against their, their ragtag team of like monsters and like supernatural beings with the humans, and what their game plan is at the start of that. But they become a pretty pivotal role in their game plan. And then the third faction that is, I guess you could call them like the enemy faction, and it's the Adventurers. They kind of have a tier set up where they rank you depending on how powerful you are, and he connects with them in kind of like an espionage way, I guess you could say, because their whole goal is to, since they don't know much about this area, they want to try to get as much information as they can, get connections, see who's powerful, what things are out there, because this whole goal is to try to find other actual players that got stuck in the world. So, but that's basically all it is for characters, or at least factions. There's a lot of characters. They each have their own skill sets and personalities. Like Michael said, some of them are pretty hilarious. I'll say that as much. But yeah, Michael, what are some like favorite things?
Well, I have a bunch of favorite moments looking back on this. I think my favorite theme is just him like finding out like how powerful he is in the world in comparison to other people. So I think when he first enters, he does like his favorite spell. There's 10 tiers of magic, and then there's like there's a super maximum magic like tier above that. But I think it's which you get to see the special effects, and it's pretty cool. But you get to see like a tier 7 magic with like grasp heart. And he's like, he grasps heart and destroys the heart of a human. He's like, oh, this works. I thought it wasn't powerful now. And then he does like he also creates like a Death Knight, which is probably like if he's level 100 or 150, I don't remember, but this Death Knight's probably like level 40, and the Death Knight destroys like every human or whatever.
Yeah, like none of the people can stop it.
Yeah,
it's so good.
And he's like, oh, I didn't realize that this is a big deal. And later in the show, there's like this bone dragon. It's like it's immune to magic, and one of Ain's allies is like, nope, it's only immune to magic up to tier 7, and I can use tier 10. It's like wrecks everything, and so I like the fight, them kind of exploring the world, and then they have some like fight scenes and some themes, and then you get to figure out that Ain's really is, you're following the bad guys. Like these are people that are they kill humans mercilessly, even though
it's okay though, they're just NPCs.
I mean, are they? But, he kills humans mercilessly, and he's like, anyone who's not part of Nazarick, I will kill and do whatever. And not just, like, kill and then let them die, like, torture them.
Well, yeah, he's, like, nonchalant about it, because it's not like, he's like, it's not really my goal, but if it happens along the way, he's like, I don't care. Like, sure, whatever. I think that's one of the things that I personally like about this show is, there's so many, like, animes and, like, Japanese stories that have somebody transported into a different world, but this is unique in the sense that he's a different being when he's transported, and he's a being that, one, is, like, OP because he can die, but he's pretty immune to a lot of things that he wouldn't be if he was some other class, and then, like, two, the way the game works is... and I guess it's restricted because of his class, is he can't have certain emotions or anything like that, so it ties it down, and it, I guess in a sense, takes away some of his human elements, which allows him to be so disconnect from the other humans that they're actually going up against, and I just think that's a really cool aspect, and it helps you kind of see, like, because he has a mentality of like a human, so there's times where that plays into play, but since he overall is like, oh, this is a game, like, oh, it doesn't really matter, like, oh, and then also he can't have certain emotions, just like, oh, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, and you get to see, in the first season, you really don't find out, like, the third, like, the end, what's going to be the end of the third season, but, since I've read the later material, but you find out, like, how savage, like, Demiurge, which is his, like, strategic... I think he's his strategic partner versus like defensive Nazarick and basically the general of his army. He's one of like the top 3 guys there, and like what he's doing to humans like in a couple countries over, how he's like dealing with them and stuff. You get a couple hints in this season, but it's like, oh yeah, they're literally doing that. Okay, and then again, the disparity between the humans and him is just great too. How like in the world, basically, they only believe that, like, 3 tiers of magic exist, and, like, the 4th tier is, like, or mysterious.
Yeah, or there's, like, he gives, like, a potion, and, like, to him, it's, like, a low-level item, but to them, it's, like, it's uncharted territory. They're like, what is this? Is this safe to drink? And then they're like, oh, yeah, it's fine, and it cures, like, all mortal wounds, pretty much, and they're just like, this is amazing.
Yeah, some of that's really cool. You have some weapons like that, too. In season 2, you get more of that with lizard people and other factions.
Yeah.
But
I think from just an enjoyable watching scenario, like the characters, that's a big part because I mean there is fight scenes and their fight scenes are amazing, but most of the time I focus on the characters and driving the plot forward because this is very much like a show that is going to need a lot of setup work in order for you to get to the big spectacle fights. But in this season, there is several big fights that you get, or at least enjoyable ones, and they're really good as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the, similar to like One Punch that we reviewed and probably released by this point when you're seeing this video, but similar to One Punch, it's like, it builds up like, oh, it's a legendary weapon, it's a legendary animal that we've never seen, and he's like, oh, I'm so excited, and then it turns out to be a hamster.
Yeah.
And it's like, some of those moments are just, that's how the comedy comes in, it's great. And
I love how he defeats him too. He's just like fear magic, and it's like, oh, so good.
There's the legendary beast of the forest has been beaten, boys. Yeah, no, that kind of stuff is pretty cool, and moving forward, the plot's really great. We're getting into season 1 I think is really solid. You can kind of get a feel for the show and if you're gonna like it or not, and you can move on to season 2 or season 3.
I will say it's a show that I think you can't watch one episode to really judge the show. This is a show I like, as a personal rule. I like doing 2 or 3 episodes, and I think that rule really benefits to anybody that's interested in checking out the show, because you get to see a lot of setup, like I said, but there's not a whole lot that happens in maybe like the first 2 episodes. Once you get to like 3 or 4, that's when it really starts to pick up, and you get to see
it's a
kind
slow
of like
burn.
what the show is. Yeah, at least in the first half of this season, and I mean you'll see that in the later part of the series as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely a character show for sure. You get to every time you see this character, you're like, oh man, I like this guy so much, because the tension. There is some tension in the last couple episodes in season 1 because you don't know what's going to happen. But it's an interesting show, and you get to basically Ainz is a normal person. He doesn't want to be a king, and that's another where the comedy and interesting elements come in. Is like him trying to pretend to be an all-powerful ruler. And him learning how to do that. So yeah, season 1, I really like those elements about season 1. What do you have any of the fight scenes or any of other moments that were your favorites?
The very end fight is really good, and I like how they justify it, because you might first watch it or you might see it in the opening, because that is, I guess, one thing that I can nitpick about is the opening for the show. The song is great. I don't have a problem with it, but the animation that they queue up with the song kind of spoils some plot things that happen. They don't give you any context, of course. So if you're speculating while you're watching the rest of it, you might be like, "Oh, well, how's that gonna work out for the plot?" Because of what you've seen so far. And so I really like how they justify that, and they do it in a way that is super cool. And the way that ends changes some things, as you'll see. It's either at the end of the very end of the season, or it's at the beginning of the second season. But as far as another one that was really good, he's got a lot of fights in the first season that they don't pose a threat to him at all. But the way that they're presented, they're still very suspenseful, I guess you could say, or you're just engaged, I guess you could say. And they're just so good. Like, there's one in particular, we just rewatched it because I was thinking about it, and we watched it before we recorded this. And I'll just say it takes place in a graveyard, and it's against one lady. But I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, and one aspect of the show that we haven't really covered too much, I don't even think we mentioned it yet, is he does become an adventurer, like, just as a spy, and so he actually is a warrior in that one, because he's a magician, but he has, like, I guess, a spell that he can pretend to be a warrior, be a level 50 warrior or whatever.
Yeah, like, it's not his primary skill, so, like, when he uses that class, he has to lower some of his stats on the other things, but since he's so powerful, like, even his, like, other skill that he's not so good at is still powerful compared to other people in this world. So that's another thing where it's like, oh, he's not as powerful in this form, but he's still rich.
Yeah, and you get so that way, you don't have to. You get a variety between, like, magic and you have hand-to-hand combat.
And that's one of the things that's interesting, is just the double agent type life that he lives throughout the series, or just at least in the first season. It's interesting to see him interact, being a leader with his Nazarick, and then also with him being just a supposedly normal person and the adventurer type lifestyle. So, but getting on to our rating, Michael, where would you rate this at?
Well, we're still kind of working on our rating system, as you guys well know. I think this is for sure a worth it. I think I'll give it a high worth it, because which in our new rating system we'll have in the description, but mainly just because it is set up. You do have 3 or 4 episodes of setup, and you do have to deal with that. So, but if you like the concept, I think if you like the concept of an anti-hero, or looking at if you've ever really been like, I want to see, like, from the bad guy perspective what they're doing. And it's funny because you almost forget in the show that they're the bad guys, like, in some episodes, because you like the characters and you like what they're doing. Like, oh no, they're, like, enslaving, all these people or whatever they're doing. So that's kind of one element that I like. But yeah, if you like that kind of looking and see what the bad guys are doing, empire building as well, and you have Nazarick and a lot of cool fight scenes, so I'd give it a strong worth it. And for season 2, it'll be a little bit different just because there's not as many setup episodes. But I did really enjoy it, and I would recommend watching it if you're into this genre, or if you're into the kind of fights in most animes. Then this is definitely one of the best, and it is an adult show for sure. We're looking at it. It is very violent. You do have torture elements. Humans, a lot of people die. So
yeah, there's also some other themes that they play on, which they're not as bad if you had a younger audience, but still though it's it's more appreciated. It's their lighter heart moments are still kind of not for young children.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have a similar stance with Michael. It's definitely a strong high tier worth it. It's got a lot of things that is going good for it. It's got, like I said, a great opener. It's got good fights. The characters are really interesting. There's a wide variety in their personalities that you can just enjoy separately, or independently, I should say. But it is slow at times, which for some people that may be a turnoff. Me personally, doesn't bother me as much. I don't mind a story that goes by slower as long as they focus on each of their characters at a balanced level. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. If, like Michael said, if it's part of a genre that you like too, or if you just like watching skeletons, because you'll definitely get a lot of that.
Yeah, well, that pretty much is it for Overlord Season 1. We'll be reviewing Season 2, and as most of you know, Season 3 is in the middle of production. Probably get this series done by then, so we can review Season 3 as soon as it finishes.
Yeah.
Just remember that we have our website up. We have various things on this channel, including anime. Mm-hmm. We just actually... by this time or close to this release, we also reviewed Mission Impossible.
Yep.
So you can see that review and other movie reviews on the channel here. So with that, I will see you later, Addicts.
All right. See ya.
See ya.